Time for Empire of Silence. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Andre and I'm your bookworm, and today we are reviewing Empire of Silence by Christopher Ruocchio. As you've probably seen by the short this week, I have finished and we are currently reviewing Empire of Silence by Christopher Ruocchio, as I mentioned, and this is the first book of the Sun Eater series. This series is composed by 7 novels, plus a few short stories, and on top of that, this is Christopher Ruocchio's debut novel and debut series. And as you probably know, because this book has become very famous in the last couple of years, especially even before being published, or traditionally published I should say, because it got that fame even as an indie edition. So that's really good, that promises a lot. Let's see what I think. But so for the ones that don't know anything about it, this is a space opera science fiction novel, initially published in 2018, and at that time it was nominated for a couple of awards and it won those awards, one of them for best debut novel, which again, really good for a debut author. And the edition you see here is a special edition of this book, so you can see already that not only it became quite famous, but it was grabbed by different publishers, including the Broken Binding, who decided to do a special edition of this. I have a short opening the box where this book came from. I can try and link it up for you to see more in detail the illustrations it has, but I think they did an amazing work. Not only on top of reversible dust jackets, they have interior artwork. The naked hardback has artwork as well that represents scenes of the book, so it's just full of different illustrations and it's just really good quality. But back to the specifics of this book. On Goodreads, this book has over 41,000 ratings, again just showing once more how famous it got, because these books don't tend to be that famous when they're indie published, but this one, it's viralized, I don't know how to say it, and it became really famous, which is good. And the average score it has is a 3.98 out of 5. Now, it doesn't look that good if you look at other books, but this is a science fiction book. And in science fiction terms, almost a 4 is a really good score. So I'm also very surprised about this, especially considering that so many people read it. And when that happens, the scores might go down a bit, because people that are not used to reading this genre just get interested because of the fame, and then they don't like it, rate it lower, and goes on and on. But 3.98, pretty good. Let's see what I think. Now, before we jump into the actual review, I have to read the synopsis for you so that we can all be on the same page. But if you're allergic to spoilers and don't want anything to do with it, then you can just skip to the next timestamp. You'll jump right into our categories and you'll enjoy the review. But otherwise, stick around and let's find out what this book is about. It was not his war. The galaxy remembers him as a hero, the man who burned every last alien Cielcin from the sky. They remember him as a monster, the devil who destroyed the sun, casually annihilating 4 billion human lives, even the Emperor himself, against imperial orders. But Hadrian was not a hero. He was not a monster. He was not even a soldier. On the wrong planet at the right time, for the best reasons, Hadrian Marlowe starts down a path that can only end in fire. He flees his father and the future as a torturer, only to be left stranded on a strange backwater world. Forced to fight as a gladiator and navigate the intrigues of a foreign planetary court, Hadrian must fight a war he did not start, for an empire he does not love, against an enemy he will never understand. And that is it for Synopsis, and because we don't have to look at scores of previous books, we can jump right into our categories, and of course we're going to start with plot. Alright, the first thing I gotta say for this review, and this is not specific to plot, but overall for the whole feel of the book, is that I kept thinking this reminds me a lot of The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Not really for the style, because The Name of the Wind is a fantasy book and the writing is quite different. Patrick Rothfuss has a very flowery writing, which I love, but many people don't. And this one is much more direct and straight to the point. But the style in which the story is told, the plot device, which is basically having our character in the present, just relating all the things that happen to them throughout their lives until we reach the present moment, that's similar. But also some of the beats in this plot were quite similar comparing to The Name of the Wind. However, I do think The Name of the Wind does one thing better than Empire of Silence doesn't, which is having an overarching arc. Empire of Silence suffers from not having one, because we are following the story of Hadrian, and okay that the story is interesting and it is engaging, but we don't really have an objective or something bigger than his life to understand what is going to happen, what is going to drive him to do all of this. We have his goals as a person, but at the same time it feels like he's just going through the motions and there's no big thing for him to achieve across several books. That objective seems to have appeared towards the end of this first book, but I think by the end it's too late to recover that enthusiasm of an overarching arc throughout the 7 books. But aside from that, I think the surprises and the twists that happen, although they're not amazing, mind-blowing, they're still good and they're engaging. Like I said, following Hadrian is fun and you get to understand a lot about characters and about world building, but as a plot per se, it is not amazing, but it's also not bad. So I think I'm gonna set there around the 4 out of 5, but I can totally understand and see how the author can grab this and make it a lot better in the next volumes. So I'm expecting this score to increase in the next installments. Okay, so what about characters? So of course, because this is the story of Hadrian and we are only following Hadrian's perspective, it's normal to only have his perspective and him to have a bigger focus as a character. For me, him as a character was okay. He doesn't have anything wrong with him per se in the sense of the way I like characters, but there is a characteristic of him that annoys me a bit, which is when characters keep saying that they're terrible people and that they only make bad decisions, but in the plot itself, they never make a bad decision and they're always nice people, even though they internally don't think so. I understand that maybe in the future he will commit some serious acts that will be worthy of guilt and that he will be blaming himself a lot. But in that moment, they're never like that. And so having the narrator, which is him constantly saying, oh, I was really bad and I made this really bad decision and this was the trigger of everything, maybe, that becomes a bit annoying. And then we also have all the side characters. None of them I would say they're secondary characters, they're all more side because they interact with Hadrian, but we never get to see much of development for them. And those are Hadrian's family, the people that he interacts in the second world, and all of them are okay. Some of them are more developed than others, but they still all give me the sense that once they're out of the scene, out of the foreground, they don't exist pretty much. It's almost as if they are only necessary when in the presence of Hadrian, when he needs them kinda, and then once he doesn't need them, they kind of disappear as if he were at theater. There was a period in the book where I thought we were going to have more of a group dynamic with more characters being more important to the plot, or at least more cohesive, and it would look like we would have different interactions, but that kind of disappeared soon after. However, towards the end, there might be signs that that is going to happen in the future. I'm curious about that point because if we have a group dynamic, I think the character impact will be better. For now, I'm going to give this category a 4 out of 5, but like I said, I think it has a lot of potential to go into a 5 in the next volumes. And now world building. This category was, I think, the weakest of them all, but this is not to say that it was bad. Don't come for me before I explain it. I think in this book, we have a few seeds that look very, very promising. I mean, the way humanity is set up, the various alien races, including the Cielsen, the ruins that Hadrian explores towards the end, all of that, they look like very good seeds to be planted in this first book and developed throughout the series. But I think aside from that, we explore 2 worlds, but very superficially. And I think that's partially because of the way the plot is set. We are exploring Hadrian's day-to-day, and we are only following Hadrian's perspective. I think what we got was good, but I'm gonna say that my expectations for the next book and the next books in the series are higher, because I think Christopher Ruocchio has a lot of good things to work with. So for this category, it's gonna be a 4 out of 5. Like I said, it's not bad whatsoever. It has a lot of promising things, but it also didn't deliver at the 5 level because it was just a lot of superficial things, or superficial seeds, let's say, that eventually will bloom. It's basically a base has been established and now we're going to develop upon that. Now let's move on to writing style. Like I said before, Christopher Ruocchio's writing style, very, very different from Patrick Rothfuss's, even though they have similar writing devices. Don't expect a flowery prose, think more of a direct, brutal, but not necessarily violent prose that goes right into the business. Action is written well. I wouldn't say it's great. I still need some more action sequences to make that decision. But I can say that his prose is stark and is able to deliver a punch, especially emotional punches when it's necessary. And as for pacing, I don't think it ever got boring. There was moments where things were slowing down, but the author was able to introduce something new to make it fresh and to make us regain that pacing. Of course, Christopher Ruocchio also explores some themes. Some of them are really not that subtle, but I also think that for a debut author, they were done well in a way that doesn't seem preachy whatsoever, and it does seem like the character is just exploring different morals or different themes altogether. So for this category, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5, which again, for a debut author, I think it's really good. I think it will improve in the next books, or at least I hope, as the author gains more maturity, gains more skill, and keeps writing in this story. And our last category is enjoyment. And I can start by saying that the hype for this book was enormous a while ago. I didn't read it at the time because I didn't want to go into that hype train and then end up reading and being disappointed. And I actually think that if I had done that, if I had read this book while the hype train was going, I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. I would have thought maybe it was a bit more boring or plotless than should, considering all the people that were talking about it. As for this current time and this current read, I actually enjoyed it, despite those flaws. I was always curious to see what would happen with Hadrian, what he would do, what his story would be. And because it's the first book I've read of Christopher Ruocchio, and also the first book of the series, I was quite curious to see what the author would bring and what would make this story worth to read 7 books. I mean, I was never in a state of, oh my god, I need to know what's going to happen next. I need to keep reading and not stop. Never like that, but it was also like, oh yeah, this is Hadrian's story. Let's find out more. I'm curious. Now that I have some time to read, let's dive into it. So for this category, it's going to be a 4 out of 5 as well. And so we end our review. Just as a refresher, we have 4 for plot, 4 for characters, world building, writing style, and enjoyment, which gives us a score, you can guess very well, a 4 out of 5. This is very, very close to the Goodreads score, which means that my opinion is very similar to the average person on Goodreads that has read this book. But I do think that this series has a big, big chance of increasing its score, especially the next few books, if Christopher Ruocchio is able to pick all the good things that he created and develop them to their potential. I think the next books will probably increase in score a lot, and hopefully we'll get some 5s. I'm not sure if I would recommend this particular book to anyone just yet, because I don't know how things will develop. I don't know if the series improves or gets worse, but as soon as I do, I will let you know. And I think it has a lot of potential, like I keep saying. Let's hope Christopher Ruocchio delivers it. But what I can say is, if you enjoy the writing device of The Name of the Wind, the main character telling their story as they progress throughout since they are children up to adulthood, then this is a good book with that same plot device, so you might enjoy it as well, even though everything else about it isn't. And if you've read it already, it's your time to let me know what you think. Comment down below what are your thoughts about this book or the series overall. Is there one of the books that is your favorite and you think it's really worth pushing through? Comment down below and let me know. And if you're new, don't forget, subscribe, like the content, and you shall be seeing me on Thursdays and Sundays, okay? See you soon.